Hello, my fellow clowns. We got a clown mafia going on, and it's called Funny Like a Clown Podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wirth, March 1st, 2002. And yeah, man, let's hope you're all part of the clown mafia out there. And we were exploring the history of comedy here on Funny Like a Clown Podcast. This is episode 140, and the inspiration for most podcasts. Hey, we did Joe Rogan, we did Adam Carolla last week. And we're probably going to start with the guy who inspired these guys, Mr. Maron, excuse me, Marc Maron, who was like first one to have the big comedy podcast. I mean, I wouldn't say the first guy to have the big podcast as far as comedy shows go. This guy went viral before any of these guys. As always, today's episode is brought to you by G Vegas buffalo sauce for the spicy, sweet, fit, savory taste of game time. There's only one. He said it, one. G Vegas, available at www.gvegas.webs.com. And speaking of buffalo sauce, I was on the internet today. I'm on YouTube, and I found what was it, hot wings or hot something, where this guy sits down with celebrities and they get 10 questions and they get 10 wings and they just get hotter by the wing. And I was cracking up. So I would recommend it after you get done listening to the Funny Like Clown podcast. Check it out, man. Yeah, we've discussed it before. Podcasts, man, they seem to have taken over. Everybody and their brother's got a freaking podcast about something. I don't know. Everybody said, it started with Jerry Seinfeld with, comedians in cars getting coffee. Then everybody had, hey, I'm getting donuts with, my doctors or something, or whatever it is. I don't know. But everybody's got their shtick, and you could say, I'll start it back with this guy. He was the first guy to take the comedy angle and turn it into a hugely successful podcast. I mean, it goes back to Adam Carolla, I think, the old guy, VJ from MTV, video disc jockey, or whatever they called him. I think he had like one of the original podcasts before the word podcast even came around. But this guy, Marc Maron, he turned it into a household name with some of the guests he was getting. This guy, you'd have your friends from comedy come on before this guy. This guy was getting all the same guys that were appearing on the Tonight Show, the late nights with the David Lettermans. They were coming on this guy's podcast. He turned like a household thing into a big brand name. Many followed, man, and it's become even more successful than the late night shows. So if you look at the numbers that Joe Rogan and Adam Carolla are pulling, it's bigger numbers than the late night shows even have available to them, because it's a worldwide thing. Which they followed suit. I mean, hey, YouTube's worldwide, internet's worldwide. They're all streaming online. They're not just doing just the TV anymore. Everybody's doing the online streaming thing. You know why? Because that's where the people are at. I'm in Massachusetts, hanging around a town called Leominster, and almost every street corner there's a pizza shop, and people drive through and say, "Why the hell are there so many pizza shops in this town?" Because that's what people are buying, baby. That's why. Why there's so many podcasts? Because that's what people are listening to, baby. So hey, let's get to it here. Marc Maron. In the 1900s and 2000s, he was a frequent guest on The Late Show with David Letterman. Being to his comedian roots. And, these are a couple guys who started at the Comedy Store. Okay. Stan Puff. I thought it was going away. I guess not. Anyway, they started at the Comedy Store and, remained friends. All the big, legends started there. And if you were coming up as a nobody, you met other nobodies that went on to do big stuff. So they're all friends. And, back then, the Comedy Store wasn't a legendary place it was like today. I know local comedian Chance Langdon, he used to perform them back in the day, and I had him on the podcast. If you listen, he said, "Oh yeah, I drove by one. And I'm going to say open mic night. Now, open mic night at the Comedy Store. Who would have thought this? Nowadays it's like a lottery, and it's literally, you got to hit the lottery to get a spot on the open mic night there, up in the belly room." But Chance said he was driving by and just stopped in, sign. All you had to do was sign up and go up. It was kind of like any other. It's not like the big thing it was today. So it wasn't as hard to get on stage back then at the Comedy Store. So when these guys, made it big, they all remained friends. Let's see, over 40 times he was on Late Night with Conan O'Brien. So good friends with Conan O'Brien. That was the most appearances for a comedian ever on the Conan O'Brien show. So making his rounds on the late night circuits there, making a name for himself. 1993 to 94, hosted Comedy Central's short attention span theater. So that didn't last too long, but hey, you're on Comedy Central, not a bad thing. He was a regular on Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn, which that was a great show. That was one of the good underground shows, I guess they'd call it, from back in the day. And let's see, 2002, he tried a VH1 short-lived series game show called Buzzcocks, which just the name of that sounds like Buzzcocks. Who names a game show Buzzcocks? I guess some British spin-off or something. They had a game show like that over in Britain. They spun it off here in America. But you can't say tits on TV, but you can say Buzzcocks. I don't, hey, who knows who's making the rules? I don't know. But let's see, he was a regular on Air American Radio almost from like the inception of this network when they first decided to be a radio network. 2004 to 2009, he did the Marc Maron show. He co-hosted other shows on it, Backroom Live and Morning Sedation. Then 2009, the radio show was canceled. After he got canceled from there, he hosted a twice weekly show, What the Fuck podcast with Marc Maron. That's where most of us know him from now. But there was some beginnings that led up to the podcast there. 2010, he did an episode with Louis C.K., which was voted the #1 podcast of all time by Stage Magazine. Not gonna lie to you, I never heard of Stage Magazine, but just have anybody tell you had the #1 podcast of all time is a cool thing. So if you're a listener and you think Funny Like Clown is the #1 podcast of all time, then damn it, thank you, because we're getting bigger and bigger, man. I'll tell you, we're on VMO, we're on frickin' Amazon Prime, iHeartRadio, Spotify, we're frickin' everywhere, man. And hey, what's funner than exploring comedy, man? Because there's no, laughter is the best medicine. And you want to know how it all started? Well, this is how you find out. That's the most interesting. Just find out how most of these guys got their start. That's the thing. Let's see. How big did the What the Fuck podcast get with Marc Maron? In 2015, he got to interview then President Barack Obama. Now you got a president of the United States willing to come on your podcast. Damn it, you're hitting some numbers. That's all I can say. Let's see, 2013, 2015, the television station IFC had a TV series called Maron. 2017 to 19, he had a Netflix series called Glow. Here's what I know: he had a minor role in the 2019 edition of Joker, the movie. Which I mean, that was the movie of the year that year. So hey, you got any role in there, you're doing pretty damn good. So let's see. I've always thought about. I'm gonna watch it here eventually, Joker, because it did win movie of the year, and it's like I haven't watched it because it's like that's why I do comedy to laugh at the misery. I have enough misery in my life, and I heard it was like a real miserable movie, so it's like I don't like to watch miserable movies, but it was the movie of the year, so I am gonna watch it eventually. I'll have to keep an eye on that for Marc Maron when I do. All right, let's see. He started comedy in 1987. Which I was a junior in high school then. I graduated in '88. So, man, this guy, I was still in high school and this guy got started. His pro career started at the Comedy Store when he befriended Sam Kinison, which there are some funny stories about him and Sam Kinison where I guess he owed Sam some freaking money and he tracked him down. Sam came to town one time, tracked down to his apartment looking for his money. He wasn't there. So he pissed all over his bed sheets to leave a message. Hey, you owed me some money. And I guess Marc walked in with a friend and saw that he pissed all over his bed sheets. He turned to his friend and said, see, I told you I knew him. Didn't even care that his sheets were pissed on by Sam. He proved he knew the famous comedian Sam Kinison to his friends. So that's funny shit. And let's see. After the stint at the Comedy Store, doing comedy there, he moved to New York and started appearing on open mic nights where he apparently caught the eye of Saturday Night Live. So he got the tryout for Saturday Night Live. And these are the facts that makes this show fucked up because you're not going to hear this shit probably anywhere else. But when he auditioned for Saturday Night Live, he showed up for a meeting with Lorne Michaels. Okay, now you're doing so good at this audition, you get to meet the guy who was running Saturday Night, the legendary Lorne Michaels. And what does Marc Maron do? He shows up stoned to the meeting. It's like, how do you not respect that meeting? How do you show up stoned to that? So, needless to say, he did not get the gig at Saturday Night Live. I guess Mr. Lorne Michaels wasn't impressed with him showing up stoned. He did eventually break into TV with some voice work on Dr. Katz. He got himself a HBO half-hour comedy special, half-hour comedy special on HBO and Comedy Central Presents, which these were the young comics, the up-and-coming time. You don't get a full hour of comedy, you get a half-hour of comedy, but we're going to present you in a half-hour comedy. Then you earn your way to the hour comedy show. Here's one locally because he did go to college in Boston, okay, and he did some showcases with the Cam Neely Foundation, which nowadays it's called Comics Come Home, which legendary comedian Lenny Clark, he's a big part of that, and they get some really big names in there for that, and just to be touched with that great cause and those great comedians, and it's probably the biggest comedy show that goes on in Massachusetts, once a year, where all the stars come out. Let's see, 2000, he started a one-man show on Broadway called Jerusalem Syndrome. 2009, I can relate to this one. He's 2009 started working on a second one-man show called Scorching the Earth, based on his bitter divorce from his wife, which is half of why I do comedy as therapy for a bitter divorce I went through, where I saw my kid was getting hurt, and that's why I came up with the character, the child sports superhero, and put out a movie that is now available on VMO.com called The World Needs a New Superhero for $1.99. You can see my movie, go there, check it out. But I can definitely I can relate to Marc, man. You got to laugh about this shit, or life it'll eat you apart if you don't laugh about it. So you got to choose to laugh about it. And rather than let his divorce drive him crazy, which I'm sure it was because it drove me nuts, he chose to laugh about it. And I told my mom that often. She's like, you shouldn't joke around about this. I was like, Mom, you could either visit me in a comedy club or you could visit me in a prison cell. Okay, I chose to laugh about it. Try much better route to win. It drive me crazy. Okay, so it's therapy. Let's see, 2013, he got a Netflix special, Thinky Pain. 2015, he got a More Later special on Epics, which hey, Netflix, Comedy Central, this guy's hitting the top of his game here. Even with the legendary podcast that he has. Let's see. He was with Air America almost from the first day of the station. Like I said, when he first broke into radio. I guess the executive running it didn't get Marc's jokes. He didn't get the angry tone of the show, which he decided not to renew his contract, which, not everybody gets that kind of comedy. I had a girlfriend I was dating, and I tried to introduce her to Sam Kinison, and we'd sit there and watch one of his specials, and she'd crack up at the whole special. Then after that, she'd be like, no, you shouldn't do that. That's offensive. Well, why the fuck were you cracking up so hard? So some people, they don't get it. It's meant as a joke. It's not meant to be taken serious, especially in today's cancel culture with these young kids where everything's offensive. We live in America, the greatest country in the world. We're not a communist country. Nobody can tell you how to think, okay? But no, these culture kids, you have to think the way I do. They can't respect you have an opinion of your own and it's different than theirs. You have to think the way they want you to. That's the world we're living in. It's getting more messed up by the day. All right. Well, he wasn't down long. After Air America didn't renew his contract, he went up to 11:50 a.m. in LA radio, where most jobs they promise you the world and deliver next to nothing. But they promised to put him in syndication, which means it would just be on an LA, be on worldwide once you're in, coast to coast. They called it nationwide. I'm sorry. But they promised him syndication. He never got it. He never got on coast to coast. They just kept him in a local thing. Plus, a lot of his shows, they got bumped to late night because in the time slots that they had, I guess the contract they had with local sports was local sports came first, which is big money there. So, they'd have to air his thing after local sports if they were playing. So it was a later time slot where not as many people were up, to listen to it. So you're getting your time slot booted and you're not getting syndication. That sounds like a recipe for failure. They said they let him go to financial reasons, which I did have a friend. He worked in radio, and he was at like a shitty station for a while. They turned it into this big. They spent some money, refurbished a brand new state of the art station they put in. They had him on for a while, and eventually they let him go because it was cheaper to have automated radio than to pay somebody to go in there and do it. So financial, that's always going to catch up with your money. That's a big part of any business. But hey, this probably, they say when one door closes, another door opens. This led to the biggest break of his life. And he always said this platform was available to everybody, but he was the first one who chose to use it. He chose to make a podcast out of the garage of his house. Okay, this is where this guy's doing this. He's got the #1 podcast there for a while, and he's doing it out of the garage of his house. September 1st, 2009, he began a weekly podcast called What the Fuck Podcast with Marc Maron. Put it out for free distribution. he released over 1,000 episodes, and now this guy, like I said, he was at the Comedy Store. He met all these famous comedians, but the comedians who were doing all the big time shows, he was getting them on this podcast. That was what was drawing people to the podcast. If he had a bunch of nobodies, it wouldn't. Who do you want? As we mentioned, President Barack Obama, Paul McCartney, Robin Williams, Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Lauren Michaels. So I guess Lauren Michaels, once the popular podcast went on, I don't know if they must have talked about him showing up stoned to the. Apparently, there was no hard feelings if Lauren was coming on after him showing up stoned, but he was noted as an influence to some of the other long running podcasts, as you mentioned, the Joe Rogan Show and the Adam Carolla Show, which are probably the two most popular comedy podcasts right now. But there would be none of them if it wasn't for this guy starting the whole thing, Marc Maron. And back in the day, the only places that could get the big stars like the Paul McCartneys and the Robin Williams, and even, can you imagine a president of the United States going to somebody's garage in their home to do a podcast? I mean, that's funny to think about in itself, right there. But nowadays it's a common thing to see these guys on some YouTube shows. I mean, if you're hitting enough people, these stars, they want to come in and advertise to your audience, and even for just a local show that I'm doing right here. I had Eddie Deason from the movie Grease. I've had on Bill Kirchenbauer from, what was it, CBS is Just the 10 of Us. I've had some big guests on, and just for the local stuff I'm doing, I'm very proud about all the top headliners in, the Boston area, which Boston's a mecca. So, TV, you see, it's not just TV anymore. The internet is taking over, and it's the place to be right there. Let's see. As far as film work, okay. He was in a bunch of films. As in, Joker would probably be the most notable, but he only had a small role in there. But some little bit bigger roles. He was in Almost Famous, the 1997 mockumentary Who's the Garboose. He was in Sword of Trust. He was in Stardust. He did a couple of Louis C.K.'s shows on FX, the show called Louis that they run. He had his own show, Maron. He put out a first season, 10 episodes on IFC channel. Ran 2013 to 2016, 51 episodes eventually. Let's see, he was on Nickelodeon, did the voice of Harvey on Harvey Beaks, I guess that's the name. See, now I used to watch all Nickelodeon, my kid. Now that he's older, I don't know anything. Now, if you told me Rugrats or SpongeBob, I know what you're talking about. But Harvey Beaks, I haven't watched Nickelodeon since my kid left. So let's see. On a couple series on Netflix, Easy and Glow. 2013, it donated a guitar solo to the protest song "Party in the USA." Critiquing government surveillance. You're saying there's just cameras everywhere now. They can tap your phone with no reason if they want to. I mean, the government's really taking over on our privacy here, and he's against that. And I guess he said he didn't do much on the guitar good, but that was one thing that he did do good. What they asked him to do, and so plays a little guitar on the side and donated a guitar solo. Why not? And like I said, I just can't imagine just being on radio and being on these big time specials and shows, and deciding who would have the balls to take a chance like that and say, you know what, I'm going to start a weekly podcast out of my garage, and I'm going to get my big time friends from the Comedy Store on. And I know even Joe Rogan, he said he started out with just some of his friends came on, like the local stars. But I mean, that sets up a base. Then he said, I wonder if I can get this guy. I wonder if I can get this guy. And the more, the more big stars you get on, the more the want to come on. That's kind of how it works, You start out as a small thing and turn it into something big. Hey, thank God he did, because this podcast here, Funny on the Clown, probably wouldn't exist if it wasn't for these guys. Marc Maron influenced Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan influenced me, and hopefully I'm influenced some of you guys out there, man. Do what you love to do in life. I love talking about the history of comedy. I love knowing how people got started, what they did, how they did it, and hey, every now and then I pop in an idea. Hey, that's a good idea. Maybe I should try that. Help out my comedy. And you can help out my comedy by going to VMO.com and checking out my movie, The World Needs a New Superhero. Very proud of that, man. It's a very good It's a very good piece of work I put out, and hopefully a lot of people watch it. Let's see, things you didn't know about Marc Maron. He takes in stray cats. I guess he lives out there in California, and he sees stray cats. He takes them in and he adopts them. I guess he calls his house the Cat Ranch. Okay, so I guess they got crazy cat ladies, and Marc Maron's the crazy cat guy. I don't know, but he talks openly on his podcast in Every Life about being sober since 1999, and I remember, him talking. I forget who he was talking about, but they were talking about how AA, it doesn't have a high success rate. It says, go, you got to go to AA, you got to go to AA, but it doesn't really work out for a lot of people. And but he says, what else is there? You either go to AA and try to find God, or what's your other alternatives? So even though it don't have a high success rate, there's nothing else. You have to have something to try in AA's in. So, but I always said, I think Alice Cooper, he had talked openly about being an alcoholic, and he said he found a way out through golf. He said he took up the game of golf. He loves it. Now, instead of going for the booze, he goes for the golf. Okay. And you got to find something to replace that alcohol outlet. And I guess maybe Marc did it with the cats. Instead of going for booze, he goes for the stray cats and helps them out. You got to find something to replace that booze in your life. Let's see, as you mentioned, he was married twice, openly talks about the divorce in his act, which makes me want to see this guy live even more because, man, I got a character called the child support superhero. I talk about child support and, dealing with crazy exes. And this guy's up my alley because I've never seen his act. I've never heard it, but I'm going to have to check it out. I think we dig each other, me and Marc. Who knows? Maybe he's tuning in, Funny Like Clown podcast. Let's see. He was close friends with Louis C.K., as we mentioned. Appeared on his show Louis on FX a couple times. Then I guess you find out who your real friends are. I don't know who side you believe. When Louis' sexual scandal came out that he was masturbating or asking permission of what the hell he was doing there, but I guess it wasn't so much that he was doing it. It was like, I guess Marc confronted him before it became this big known thing, and Louis kind of lied to him about it. And I guess it hurt him more that he lied to him than you tell your friend the truth of friends. So I guess didn't forgive him for lying. Who knows? They put it in the past or not. Hey, he showed up to Lauren Michaels' Stone, and Lauren Michaels came on his podcast years later. So that might be a podcast I have to listen to right there, because I wonder what Lauren thought of this guy having the balls of being a nobody in comedy and showing up to Saturday Night Live asking for a job stoned. I mean, that's got to be ballsy right there. Hey, we're doing ballsy thing here on Funny Like Clown podcast. We're putting out a great podcast. Like I said, we're on Amazon Prime now, iTunes, Spotify, TalkShoe. That's the main home base right there. And numbers are going good on TalkShoe, man. YouTube, I put them on. I get asked so numbers, but TalkShoe, it's really going through the roof. So check it. I guess people don't like to watch a podcast; they want to listen to it while they're in bed. They kick back and turn on. So maybe just the audio version. But hey, some people like the video version because you want to see the guy's expressions on the face when you're talking about it. What's going on? Who's your favorite comedian? Maybe review them. Maybe it's in the future. But man, I always said 300. About 300 mainstream comics. I mean, once I hit that, I think I've hit every mainstream comic you've heard of. But we're doing a good job. I'm having fun. Hope you're having fun with me. Hope you're part of the clown mafia. And until next time, hey, I'm Dennis Wirth. Keep them laughing. Keep being funny. Because hey, if you're not laughing and having fun, then life's eating you apart. You don't want that. Good night.